Before we get started on the football, the question that's on everybody's mind this week is, what is Mike McGarry's favorite side dish on Thanksgiving?
Side dish, stuffing, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Stuffing. I'm pretty simple on Thanksgiving. I just go turkey and stuffing. So
no mashed potatoes?
I grew up and ate potatoes every day for about the first 18 years of my life. So when I went away to college, I decided the one thing I didn't have to do anymore was eat potatoes. So, I made that decision. So I'm a strictly turkey and stuffing guy and some vegetables mixed in.
There you go. How was your Thanksgiving, man?
It was excellent. It's always a great time of year, and it's kind of been, the same routine for me for a long time now. I mean, I woke up this Thanksgiving and figured I was headed to my 25th Thanksgiving Day football game of covering a game for the Press of Atlantic City. So when you kind of think about that, it gets a little scary.
Did the paper give you a gold watch or something like that for 25th anniversary?
I'm afraid if they gave me a gold watch, I would have had to worry. So slip unnoticed, and I hope we have 25 more in us, basically.
So you're down at the Vineland-Millville rivalry. We were just talking to Coach Tony Surace, longtime coach down there for the Bolts. Tell us about him. I know you must have had some interaction with him throughout your career, and just one of those great guys to talk to. You could sit and talk football with him all day long.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I first started, he was the head coach of the Millville high school football team, and just a tremendous guy, a tremendous sort of wealth of information, and a guy who really is invaluable now because he kind of ties the past to the present, basically. I mean, he's one of those guys that connects, even though, like you said, he's from Pennsylvania, but he's a guy who connects, the football from the 1950s, 60s through the 70s to today's, football. So he kind of acts as a bridge there. I heard his interview with you when he was talking about Coach John Barrows from the 1950s.
Right.
When he coached Millville, I think it was 29 or 30 straight wins and stuff like that. And Tony's a great guy, a friendly guy, a knowledgeable guy, a great guy to be around. I covered him as Millville high school football coach, as the athletic director, and now I just think he's a great sort of bridge between the past and today's high school sports. And it's important to remember, the high school sports of the past. As we focus on today's games and stuff.
Now, do you think they'll ever do a Mike McGarry documentary?
I hope not. I hope not. But that's a great honor for him, and just a tremendous job, for him. And like you said, I'm sure it's a humbling experience. But I don't know. A Mike McGarry documentary might last about a minute and a half. So who knows?
Yeah, that's a really cool thing that SJ today did. I mean, it must have taken a lot of time, and I'll get some more information from that from Mike Frankel. But I know those guys must have spent a lot of time on this because it ended up being about a 45-minute feature.
Yeah, and it's almost the perfect setting. Not only is Tony's career, worthy of a documentary, but it's also Millville. A place where high school sports matters. I mean, I tell people all the time, it's one of the few places in the Cape Atlantic League, if not the only one, where they sell season tickets for football games.
Really?
I was out at the Millville Vineland football game on Thanksgiving, and a lot of Thanksgiving Day rivalries, people kind of debate, are they worth going on? They come in the middle of the playoffs, they're inconvenient, people... You got to get up on your holiday. Is it better just stay in bed and start cooking or something like that? Should we play them at all? Should we move them to the beginning of the season? Well, Millville Vineland on Thanksgiving still matters. Wheaton Field was packed. Both teams were into it. It's a game that still matters. So Millville is kind of a place where the tradition of high school sports lives, and I'm sure the documentary kind of goes into that. So it's almost like Tony and Millville are the perfect match for each other.
Yeah, I really like the Thanksgiving games. I know some people don't like them, but back when I was in high school, that Lacey Central game, man, everybody got excited for that one, and it was really some of the best matchups of your high school career when you're even just a fan like myself. I was just a baseball player, I didn't play football, but you remember those games, and like I remember that was the one game we lost in 2 years was the Central on Thanksgiving. So it can be like that, and. I think they should keep it. It's a great tradition. I know it's a little bit tough. You're coming off a short week, that kind of thing. But I really like the rivalries, and it's really fun for a lot of these communities.
Well, I think the ones that Lacey Central's a perfect example. I mean, that game doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
That game went away. And stuff like that. And that's kind of an example of something that's gone the other way. I think. My take is these games kind of exist in their own vacuum. What happens before doesn't really matter. As you saw, the number of upsets that were on Thanksgiving, what happens after doesn't really matter. These games sort of exist, and the games are almost bigger for the rivalries that have been around forever. Millville, Vineland first started playing in 1894. Pleasantville and Ocean City started playing 100 years ago. Atlantic City, Holy Spirit started playing in the mid-1920s, Atlantic County's oldest rivalry.
Yep.
For those types of games, the games are almost mean more than just about the players on the current team. They're about fans coming back. They're about alumni. They're about that tradition. So the games are almost bigger than, unlike your regular season football games, or unlike the playoffs, which are about the current teams. The Thanksgiving games are more about the communities involved than they almost are the players out there on the field.
And just from what I can gather the last couple of years, I don't think fans really like the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving game. I think they'd rather, if you're going to have a Thanksgiving game, they'd rather have it on Thanksgiving. I saw some chatter on Twitter about Absegami and Oakcrest playing the night before, and I know Mainland did that last year when they hosted the game. So I think there's definitely a lot of push to get these games, if you're going to play this week, to play them on Thanksgiving morning.
Yeah, some schools have done that. Now, I guess the theory being that, there are 6 or 7 games, like in the Atlantic County, the traditional Cape Atlantic League area, on Thanksgiving. So if you play on Wednesday night, you might be the only show in town, and you'll have some games like that. And, I think it can work in certain cases. St. Joe Hamilton, another rivalry game that Thanksgiving game that disappeared. They used to traditionally play the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Right, yeah, I know there's a couple games today, right.
St. Augustine Buna used to play on Wednesday night. That's another game that disappeared. My memory of Wednesday night games is it's always freezing cold. So,
and there's usually like a sideways rain going on.
Right, and it's just misty, gray. You're exactly right. I mean, it's never 50 and all the stars are out on that Wednesday night before Thanksgiving for something. So
exactly.
I see the pros and cons. The pros and cons of it. You're the only game in town. You get to celebrate your holiday tomorrow and the next day and stuff like that. I kind of see both sides of it.
Talking with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, looking ahead to next weekend, championship weekend, some pretty interesting matchups. We just spoke with Quasin Townsville from St. Joe. They're going to be taking on Mater Dei in a rematch of last year's semifinals. I don't know if Mater Dei can score enough to win this game. I think St. Joe definitely has the advantage offensively. The key is, can St. Joe's defense kind of corral George Pearson and the Ingram boy at running back? That's definitely a really good 1-2 punch. So, like Quasin Townsend was saying, if they can avoid the big play, giving up the big play on defense, they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you look at the 6 games that are at Rowan next week, and St. Joe Mater Dei is the 2:30 game on Sunday. It's a game I'll be covering, and I'm not just saying this because I'll be covering it. I think it's one of the best games that you're going to see up at Rowan. I think the talent on the field is going to be extraordinary. George Pearson, the quarterback for Mater Dei, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the state. He's headed to Central Michigan. Mater Dei has a host of other good skill position players. You mentioned the Ingram kid at running back. You've got a little history there. St. Joe had won 7 straight state titles in a row. They go up to Mater Dei last year for the semifinals, and Mater Dei beats them 26-0. So you've got St. Joe looking for some to avenge last year's defeat. So I just think that's a great game. And like you said, I mean, there's big, it's exactly right. Whatever team gives up the less big plays or makes the most big plays, and, Mater Dei has Pearson. St. Joe's got Jada Byers, who seems to return 3 punts for touchdowns every game. They've got Townsell. They've got Nate Johnson, and they've got a front four. Defensively, that front four deserves a nickname: Lomax, Morris, Snap, and Wisdom Kwashi. That front four is tough to beat. So
and also, I mean, you got Townsell and Hindeman there at the linebacker position. So that even the whole front seven is pretty intimidating.
Right, Angelo Vocal is also the freshman. I think he has 19 or 20 tackles for losses at linebacker. So, to me, the question was kind of after last year's game, you kind of thought, hey, is maybe St. Joe on a little bit of a decline here? Are they going to dip a little bit? Now, it's funny saying a loss in the state semifinal and a 7-4 record. Some schools would kill for that.
Yeah.
But for St. Joe, it was viewed as a dip. You kind of wondered, are they going to be able to get right back to where they were, or are they going to be, is it going to take them 2 to 3 years to get back? Well, they're right back to where they were. And this is kind of they've had a vintage St. Joe year, and I just think that's a tremendous game next Sunday up at Rowan, St. Joe against Mater Dei.
And Mike, the game following that, can Hamilton do it, man? Can they pull off 3 straight upsets? I guess last week wasn't an upset because they were taking on the 7th seed, but can they come as a 6th seed and win this title? Shawnee, that's a tough team to beat. Obviously, they're going to be playing them in the final at 6 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great day for Hamilton because you've got St. Joe playing, and you follow that right up with Hamilton. And, obviously football is important in Hamilton. It's kind of the number one sport in Hamilton. It matters, a big deal. And Hamilton's on a roll. Now, a couple of weeks ago, they played Shawnee, and Shawnee kind of handled them, beat them by a couple of touchdowns. We'll see what Hamilton can do in the rematch if they can kind of build off the success they've had. They've had a bye. Shawnee played this past Thanksgiving. They lost to Lenape. Hamilton's had a bye to sort of, kind of regroup and get ready for the game. But it'll be just a great day up at Hamilton. And you got to feel good for Hamilton. They're one of the best stories of the playoffs. Football is important at Hamilton. They were having an un-Hamilton-like year. And now they're one of the 10, South Jersey public schools playing for a state title on Rowan. And it doesn't matter that they're 5-6. Their record's 5-6. They're one of 10 schools playing, and so it doesn't matter what their record is now.
Awesome. Good stuff, Mike. As always, we appreciate it. We're going to let you get off to your Saturday. What do you got going on today? You covering any games to cover or no? You take a day off?
No, but we'll be checking in. Alyssa Aldridge of Mainland Regional is running up at the Foot Locker Northeast Regional up at Van Cortlandt Park. Top 10 finishers in that race get to go to San Diego for the national championships. Alyssa won Northeast last year and went out to the Nationals and finished 13th, so she's looking to qualify again this year and make another trip out to San Diego. So we'll be checking in on that. You can check our website, pressafac.com, and the paper tomorrow for a story on how Alyssa and the other locals, some other runners are up there also do it up at Van Cortlandt Park.
Yeah, what an amazing career she's had. I mean, we're going to look back at this career in 20 years, and I don't know if anybody can eclipse what she's done. We'll see. I mean, obviously there's always another kid coming along, but it's going to be tough to top her career.
2 firsts and 2 seconds at the cross-country meet champions in 4 years, not bad. Or as Larry David would say, pretty good. So.
Good stuff, Mike. We appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, Sully. See you down the road. Thanks.
All right, thanks, bud. That was Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City.